Hello, Grossmont Care Program. Xtina Jerry here. I know that the holiday party had a lot of energy. There were children running around. It was easy to have distractions and not be pulled into the workshop. So I wanted to provide a summary, recap, and kind of redo of the workshop. That way, for those of you who came up to me afterwards, you could really receive the information and begin implementing it in your own life and in your life with your children and your family. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Right? So we were talking about the power of affirmations, and we also were talking about leadership, right? So who is a leader and what does it mean to affirm ourselves or affirm others, and why is affirming one another important? All right. Let's move this little guy. All right, so we're going to talk about our personal and our professional lives, right? Our personal being the self, school, our careers, right? Dream big, right? Because you are the very first in your fucking family, and I'm going to cuss on these ones because I'm hoping little ears are not present, right? You are the first in your family to create a brand new pathway. So you are literally leading the way. And so we want to make sure that we are affirming ourselves, that we are believing in ourselves, because oftentimes when we are the very first person somewhere, from our family, from our community, from, our friendships, from whatever, it can be challenging to believe in ourselves and know that, like, we're meant to trailblaze, right? That we're meant to create this path for all who come after us. So in this, we're going to talk about who is a leader. Where if you're doing this as a group, I would say do this in partnership or pairs. If not, bust out a journal. We're going to talk about the power of narrative, right? So narrative's that story inside of our own minds. Then we're going to do an affirmation reading, which is going to be different from the day of the holiday party because I pulled two different ones today. So that's going to be the energy for you. And then we're going to talk about why affirmative leadership is important. Remind you to use that affirmation catcher, which I don't have mine right here. It's on my table. And then 6 ways that you can begin to affirm your own family so that you guys are carrying an energy and embodying and living from an energy of uplifting one another, cherishing one another, affirming one another, right? And inspiring each other to be the change needed wherever that is. Right? So a little bit about me. Again, I am a first generation student, just like all of you. I am a single mom. I have been a single mom since my pregnancy. And I also grew up on public assistance in my childhood. And then even in my own parenthood, there were times where I needed to be on public assistance. And this really can mess with our sense of worth, our sense of self, not feeling like we're enough, constantly struggling. How can we give to our kids, right? And for someone like me who I went and I got all of these degrees, and then in motherhood was really struggling to get on my own feet and was able to use that to better myself, right? So honoring that you are using resources that are there for you is not anything to ever be ashamed of, but it is something to be thankful for because it's going to create a new inheritance for your children, right? They're going to inherit a whole new way of being because you are fighting so hard to give to yourself and to your children. So again, who is a leader, right? I hope you remember that you are, because you lead your own life, right? You are the leader of your own life, the leader of your own thoughts. You lead your beautiful children and you lead your family. You might be leading in some of your groups and some of your classes. You might be leading at work or in your career, right? And you're literally, again, leading the way for all who came before you. Your family line is completely going to be different because of who you are. You're completely changing this reality for all who come after you. And it's super amazing. And you need to remind yourself that you are a dope ass fucking leader and you're exactly where you're meant to be to change this pathway for yourself. And I'm so proud of you. And so when you look in the mirror, be proud of yourself. So let's talk about, right, how our morning was. So hopefully you guys remember this activity. So this morning, let's see, my son woke up and he found his elf because we do elf on the shelf. And then he immediately got on the phone and just ignored me and was playing Roblox with his cousin. And, it's cool, but at the same time, it makes it for a challenging morning because I have to constantly remind him about all of the things to do. And then we made it to school on time. He was a little bummed when his cousin had to get off the phone and he walked into school. So I want you to go ahead and find a partner if you guys are doing this as a workshop. If you are not doing this as a workshop, I want you to pause this and just journal or reflect on your morning, okay? So pause it for about 2 minutes. So hopefully you paused it and we're back on here. And I want you to go ahead and just close your eyes. Don't be embarrassed if anyone's looking at you or what other people might think. We're all thinking that, right? So I want you to let's take 3 deep breaths in together. So good, deep breath in your bellies, like you're smelling the roses. Exhale out your mouth, like you're blowing out candles on a cake. I'm gonna do that 2 more times. Deep breath in. Let it out. One last deep breath in. And let it all out. All right. So the most powerful words we hear are the stories that we tell ourselves. So I can tell my morning in that capacity and from that energy, right? Or I can choose to understand that I get to take power over the narrative and over the story and of the energy, and I get to direct it. I get to lead that energy and that story and that narrative, right? So now we're going to think about our mornings in a different way, right? We're going to pair back up with your partners. If you're journaling, you're going to go ahead and just pause from this new energy and retell the morning from the beauty of it all. Notice your own energy, notice your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, right? And then remember that you are defining this story, right? You're defining how your morning went. I don't care if it was the worst morning in the world. You get to choose what you take on into the next moment of your life. And so it doesn't have to become the worst hour. It doesn't have to become the worst day. And it doesn't have to become the worst week just because you had the worst morning, right? And so that's the power of taking 3 deep breaths, pausing, and choosing to tell a story in a way that serves you. Right. So this morning was so beautiful. I was writing and enjoying the quiet morning, enjoying a cup of coffee. And then I could hear my son little footsteps as he was waking up. And I was so excited to hear what he thought of what his elf did the night before and how he was appearing this morning. And my son was so precious. He immediately wanted to call and share, where his elf was and how his elf was with his younger cousin, Aries. And it was just so precious listening to them talk about their elves and their laughter and the just genuine sweetness. And each time that I asked him to, get something ready for school, he diligently tended to it right away. And we had such a great morning, went directly to the car. When his cousin had to get off the phone to go to school, my son was supportive and said, have a great day at school. And I'm just so proud that we are keeping our kids connected despite us living in different states as sisters, and that our sons, who are both only children, get to have that cousin bond that's almost like a brotherly bond despite our distance. And so that was my morning, right? Same exact morning, but carries a very different energy. So I want you to go ahead and pause for another 2 minutes. And if you're paired up, go ahead and you can do this with your children. You can practice this, right? The more we practice this, the I don't want to say easier, but the stronger you become at using this kind of energetic or mental emotional muscle of directing the energy, the story, and the narrative. So pause for 2 minutes. If you're by yourself, go ahead and reflect or journal to think about how you can retell your morning from a different energy and live from that energetic space. All right. So we totally know, right, from that day of, and as you practice it again today, that it carries such a different energy and frequency, right? So when we think of radio frequencies, right? When we're tuned into 106.5, that's all we hear. We can't hear what's happening on 92.5. And that's also how our own energy is. With we're in joyful, happy, peaceful spirits and energy, that's what we're going to be pulling and giving, right? Is that frequency. But if we're upset, right? And why it's so important for us to practice this each and every single day, we're going to get more things that happen at the frequency of resentment or anger or frustration, right? So our energy is truly inseparable from all that we do, and we get to lead that, right? Instead of this kind of faux or fake positivity, right? Because that feels like I'm masking. That feels like I'm being fake. That's like, oh, I'm great, but really I'm freaking suffering. So how can I pause and instead of being suffering, how can I truly choose which energy that I want to align with, right? Because both always exist and we have the power to choose and again to lead or direct that energy, right? So I'm going to read this because I didn't have time to read this in our presentation. And this is an old Cherokee tale about understanding that both energies, right, positive or negative, or whatever two conflicting energies that we are experiencing, always and already exist within inside us. And if it exists within inside us, it exists inside of our children, it exists inside of our brothers and sisters and our parents and coworkers and classmates and everybody, right? But we really amplify or strengthen our own agency, right? Our own ability, our own voice, our own energy when we understand that we get to choose which we're aligning with, despite what has happened to us or is happening around us or even happening inside of us, right? So I'm going to read this to you. An old grandfather said to his grandson, who came to him with anger at a friend who had done him an injustice, "Let me tell you a story. I too, at times, have felt a great hate for those that have taken so much with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down and does not hurt your enemy. It is like taking poison and wishing your enemy would die. I have struggled with these feelings many times." He continued. "It is as if there are two wolves inside me. One is good and does no harm. He or she lives in harmony with all around her or him and does not take offense when no offense was intended. She or he will only fight when it is right to do so and in the right way. But the other wolf, he or she is full of anger. The littlest thing will send him or her into a fit of temper. She or he fights everyone all the time for no reason. He cannot or she cannot think because her or his anger and hate are so great. It is helpless anger, for this anger will change nothing. Sometimes it is hard to live with these two wolves inside me, for both of them try to dominate my spirit." The boy looked intently into his grandfather's eyes and asked, "Which one wins, grandfather?" The grandfather smiled and quietly said, "The one I feed." Right? And so if we have two conflicting energies within us always, the one that wins is the one that we feed. It is the one that we pour into. It is the one that we nourish, right? And so this is the importance of choosing to affirm ourselves, choosing to lead from a place of upliftment and hope and faith and trust in ourselves and our path and the dreams that we have for ourselves and our children. So let's go ahead and read the two affirmations that I pulled. Since we don't have our little ones here, there is a little bit of profanity. So I got divine timing and step forward, which I just think is super perfect for anyone in life, but especially parents, because we can get jolted in like half a second by anything that happens with our children. So divine timing. Everyone is going through their own shit. Everything unfolds exactly as it is meant. I am exactly where I need to be, right? So reminding yourself that if there's something challenging, maybe in school, maybe you didn't get the grade that you wanted, or maybe something happened with your co-parent or at work, right? Or maybe someone you love is just struggling and you don't know how to help them, but you want to be there for them. It's that trust that I am exactly where I need to be, and so are they. And we are all going through some stuff. We are all going through some stuff, but everything is unfolding as exactly as it is meant. And oftentimes that will reveal itself in time and not right when we're in that ish, right? So when we're going through some stuff, it's about that trust and that faith that I am where I'm supposed to be. And I'm going to keep anchored in this trust. And then step forward. When I am knocked, I pause, breathe into my heart space, and step forward in my greatness. So just like that practice of how was your morning, right? I will get knocked. My spirit will get knocked down or jolted or irritated or upset, bothered, annoyed, drained. But when that happens, I can pause and take those 3 deep breaths, breathing into my heart and stepping forward in from that space, right? That pure being of who you came into in this world, right? When you look at your children, especially when they were itty bitty children, they were just so precious and perfect. And that is who you are on the inside, right? Who you came into this world before all of the murk and the muck and the hardship and the challenges, right? And that's the power of us affirming ourselves, right? So why do we want to affirm ourselves and uplift those that we love? The reason why we want to lead from a place of affirmation, of affirming, and right, is because it strengthens our connections between those that we love. It's going to remove the negativity, right? That resentment, that he or she did that again, allowing you guys to connect heart to heart. And when we connect heart to heart, we hear one another. We forgive one another. We go towards the solutions instead of the problems. 2, it's going to allow you to handle more, right? So as finals come, as you transfer, and you have just more on your plate, when you're affirming yourself and you're leading your life from a place of affirmation, you will be able to take on more and overcome things with more ease. Instead of, now your morning trailing on to the day or the next day or the week, right? You're able to cut that down right away and say, you know what, this isn't going to impact me, and I'm moving forward. And when we have that ability and that skill, it prevents burnout, which also helps us handle more, right? So we're not getting drained and exhausted because we're not letting bullshit drain and exhaust us. It's also going to decrease those extreme highs and extreme lows, and going to be more of this kind of energetic even kill, which is why you can handle more and why you're going to prevent burnout, right? Because you're focused not just on the positive, but when we affirm ourselves through challenges, we receive the lessons quicker and things don't send us flailing high or low, right? And when we have an even kill energy, our kids, they inherit this, they embody this, they see us doing it and they begin practicing it. So then they start excelling in school. And because we're not taking things out on them, we're not snapping and being moody, so they're able to flourish in their own capacity. So the affirmation catcher that we made, right? This is a wonderful way to, like, if you're thinking like, I don't know how to affirm my child, or I don't even know how to affirm myself, it's a fun way to make it fun, right? So then you can create your own. And I just want you to take a moment to imagine what's truly possible if there was more of this energy each time we engage with even strangers, right? Not just even in our own homes and our own families, but where we were able to honor what one another are doing, that we're lifting one another up, that we're saying, you know what, mistakes happen, but I'm not going to let that define how I see you or how I see me or how I step forward, right? Just like toddlers, they fully feel their emotions, but when they're over something, they're over it. They don't hold on to it or have resentment, right? So I also want you to think about now that you have your own deck, right? When can you use this? So you can pull a card each morning. You can pull a card before studying. You can pull a card before work or before bed, right? For yourself or for your children. You can carry it in your purse or your backpack and bring it out and use it as a conversation starter. If you're maybe you're in your feels, or maybe you're just feeling some type of way because life is not easy, right? So turn to the deck to think, let me just redirect my own energy because I don't know how to do that right now. And this is a wonderful tool to lean on for that. So I just want to ask you and kind of plant that seed. When are times you can see yourself pulling an affirmation card? And just take note of that. So here are 6 ways to affirm our families, right? So number 1, you can write them a card. You can go to Dollar Tree or Trader Joe's has cards for $1 and just write what you love and appreciate about them. You can 2, use the affirmation catcher. We already talked about that. 3, one thing I love to do with my son is to tell him what I see in him, or what I tell, my mom or my dad, because it's so often for us to just have, get kind of stuck in the mundane or kind of expect the support that we've always had, right? Whether that's them helping me pick him up from school, or we have family gatherings, but to really pause and let my mom know what it is that I see in her. Let my son know what I see him doing, where I see his growth, like his greatness, and focus on the strengths. And instead of that, where he's lacking, right? Again, going to the tale of the 2 wolves. If I'm constantly feeding that wolf of not enough in my son, then he's not going to be enough. If I'm constantly feeding that wolf of being a brat, guess what? I'm going to get more of bratty attitude from him. But if I'm uplifting and nourishing and feeding his kindness, feeding how he's patient, feeding when he steps up and he does things and take initiative on his own, then that's what I'm going to get more of, right? Another thing you could do in addition to like a card is kind of leave a note around the house, like a little sticky note or index card, right, in their lunch pail, on their bed. It's just a sweet surprise. That makes you think like, oh, and then as we do this, like our children start doing it to us, and we get to receive what they see in us and what they love in us. Another thing that I like to do is, like, if I'm just driving or it's like, cuddle time, is what I like about you. And we just take turns. Like, what do I tell my son, like, oh, I like this about you. And then he'll say one thing about me. And then I'll say another thing about him. And we just kind of go like ping pong back and forth. That way, again, we're strengthening that muscle of honoring one another and paying attention to what it is that I see in him. The other one I love to do is I love you because. This is a great one, especially for those of you who are in like a romantic relationship. So if you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, partner, those types of things, it's great for children too. But especially if you've had some type of resentment or yeah, just like resentment, and you need to kind of cultivate that love and what you see in one another. This is a wonderful practice for you. So for the next 7 days, every time you have that kind of urge to just say, I love you. And if you don't have that urge, like that's the focus first, right? Is if you just want to say, I love you, let's not get in the mundane. Share why you're saying I love you, right? Or I love you because. And so each time you say I love you, it's like, I love you because you did the dishes, or I love you when you smile at me. It makes me feel special, right? So share those things with your partner for 7 days and see what it unlocks for you. Now, is there ever a time you get upset with your kids? Because sometimes it's like, F these mother effing kids, right? So this is my top tool that I shared kind of in the back when I moved to the back of the room to kind of shift my energy. So you're going to need to do this when you are in a peaceful, loving, just energy of like adoring your kids, right? So you're going to get a card or a piece of paper, and you're going to just write for each kid, name at the top or a card for each of them. And you're going to write all of the things you love about them, you adore, you cherish, what you see in them, how amazing, how special and unique and just dope they are, right? You're going to write all of that. Now, when they're disconnected from that light, when they're living in that, not so happy energy and you could barely, like, you just want to lose it on them, this is when you're going to go grab that, pull that paper out, and you're going to pull yourself away from your kid before you snap, and you're going to read this because it's going to help you connect with their inner being and their light and their love so that you can then guide them back to that love for them. Instead of, if you're only seeing the like the caca in them and you try to address it from that space, it usually blows up into more ish, right? So if there's a strength in learning how to be able to pause, pull yourself away, connect with the love and the light that they are, and then coming back to be like, you know what? I know who my child really is, and how they're acting isn't who they are. And I'm here to help guide them back to who they are and not whatever the F they're doing right now. So, any thoughts or questions, please do reach out to me. I hope you know that you are a leader, and I am so, so proud of you. And I can't wait to hear of the ways that you guys are affirming yourselves using the decks, affirming your children, affirming your, your loved ones and your family. Tag me on social media. I will comment back. You can reach out to me at xtina, xtina.geri on Instagram. You can email me, whatever works for you. But I just, again, wanted to thank you so much for inviting me into your space. And I wanted to provide this because I know some people came up to me afterwards saying they really wanted to hear the information, but it was just a bit of a challenge. And so I hope this is helpful and inspires you to affirm yourself and those you love.